Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. A bit of a background about me and why we're here. My name is Andreas Ströberg. Everyone I know is calling me Anton for reasons I don't know. Been like that since I was 7. Before Stackend, we had another company together called Josh, and we built a community platform for enterprise or even large enterprise companies. Such as Schibsted, Bonniers, Sanoma, Björn Borg, Aftonbladet, Stadium, etc. But we were still building community, but just the back end. And then we got King.com as client as well, and then they we only did King.com for a couple of years. Handled about 30-40 million visitors per week, so we were quite good at handling big traffic. Before that, I also worked actually at King, but it was called Midas Player, and before that we were running a European internet portal. You're too young to know this, but it was, at one point you only visited spray.com, connected to this location actually. And we were doing, I think, one of the first dating services in the world called Spray Date. We were doing that at that time. Today's e-commerce landscape is extremely competitive, and it's crucial to find a way to differentiate your store, your Shopify store or your e-commerce store in some way. And we think that building community for your store is important for several reasons. It will enhance brand loyalty by creating strong connections between your customers and your brand. This is something that I've been thinking about lately actually, but maybe the most important thing is that it will decrease your customer acquisition cost, encouraging organic growth through word of mouth marketing, user-generated content. Today's ad prices are dramatically higher than 1 year ago. I think it's 65% or something like that. I guess someone are happy for it, but maybe not you. So every customer that your content or community draw is a lower customer acquisition cost. And also I think it increased sales. It's easier to trust, and this does not fall on you as a store owner, but it's easier to trust another user or someone that you're sharing a conversation with when it comes to a purchase decision than an ad or something like that. I'm going to talk a little bit about 2 great examples. I'm sure you already heard of them, but it's Lyko and Järf Avenue, and they're both building community right on their store and has community first strategy. I'll talk more about it in a bit. There's also no real red line in this presentation. It's just going back and forward. So I'll jump right into nano and micro influencers. So I think that influencers are super interesting. I think nano and micro influencers are even more interesting. They offer several advantages over mega influencers. They typically have a much more authentic connection with the user. They do it because they really, really care about camping gear or whatever it might be, while I don't know, some huge Kardashians, they don't really care about coolers or whatever it might be. So it also makes sense, I think, to work with maybe 10 or 20 small or maybe 200 small influencers rather than work with one or two big ones. And I don't think it's necessary to name names, but it happens also that influencers suddenly lose their mind and go bananas. And then if you're Adidas, you lose about 513 millions by working with Kanye West. They had, I can't remember, Yeezy or something like that. The brand for the shoe mark was. So this also, of course, requires you to be able to work with nano and micro influencers in a structured way. And I'll give you a couple of examples what I mean with that. So for example, live shopping. We have a different take on this than other ones that I've seen. Instead of using our own video software, we use YouTube. And we think there's many upsides to this. Some technical, but also the biggest one I think is that you can use any public YouTube video or channel And that means that you can work with influencers, existing audience, but on your own site. You can also invite anyone to be a host into a live shopping event, meaning that you can distribute the content distribution, which is a heavy lifting otherwise, to constantly be releasing various part of interesting content and so on. You can also use existing YouTube videos and put product on them. If you would Google Adore, for example, you will see that there's a lot of people doing free hauls for that brand or Kicks or whatever it might be. So I think it's opportunity to use that kind of existing like small influencers that have a subscription base of maybe just 500 or 5,000 or something like that. I also think like the customer experience must be much smoother. This is a bit going into the technical part, which is the one I love, but that's always forbid to talk about. But it needs to be tightly integrated with your store. And that's why we only selected to work with one e-commerce store in Shopify, because we wanted to be able to like really be part of it and not just links in the experience. Any product that you click on and so on will appear on the side, and you will be able to buy them without interfering with the customer journey. So customer to customer sales. I think this is different take on C2C actually, but customer to customer sales for us is when a content is created by a customer that in some way inspire another user to buy that product. So that's what we think is customer to customer sales, and that's not right or wrong, it's just what we think it is. One example of this is Lyko. I think what Lyko has built is great. And because I know how much we invested in our software, I would argue that we built at least 10 years on where we are today. I salute their commitment. Until a few months ago, I did not know about like Lyko's community first strategy. But I think it's really interesting that we have landed in similar conclusion where we think that the audience should, or what should increase sales. But a couple of big differences in what we see is like, so the left one is obviously Lyko, the other one is our test store. There is an example of when you interrupt and like customer journeys. If you click on a username, you come to that profile, or if you click on a product, you go away, you leave the journey, you go to that link all the time. If we look at how we see it, if you click on a product, it's integrated with the brand, but it just folds out and you can continue the journey behind it. So we never interfere with the journey. And it's also like truly integrated. It's not links, which I also think is really important. If you click on a user, that user will fold out. Every user has as much space as you to create content. And you can buy the products and so on directly from the user profile. Our user can also create posts, but they can also include your inventory in this post. So they have full access to the Shopify inventory. So if they want to sell a Camino carryall here and they post it, then this becomes a place where it's actually connected and you can buy it. Again, a new jump. So moving traffic and engagement from social media. So if you have the tools to start generating content, discussion and competition or whatnot, something that your customer think is interesting, I think that reversing the traffic flow from social media makes sense. I never understand this where you have a website and in the bottom you have a Instagram feed, like driving traffic to Instagram from you. You're basically giving your customers the Instagram, but rather the other way around. So I think that drive traffic engagement from social media platform like Meta or TikTok makes much more sense. And I think that you should see the social posts in these channels as like movie trailers or posters for a movie, and that the most exciting events should be taking place on your site. So just promoting the movies. I also argue with myself if you would know what this movie was about, if I'm too old or something like that, but it's a movie poster for Indiana Jones at least. But this of course requires that you have tools to create engaging content in, and to be able to create a competition or whatever it might be. So I think that content and your customers are way too valuable to give away to Meta or TikTok. You should use them, not the other way around. Few tips for building an engaged community around a D2C brand, or any brand, but in this case D2C. So I think you should make the customer feel seen. I like going into physical stores. I don't like going into some physical stores, but I like going into, this is an example, there was a guy that sold diesel jeans in the Gallerian here in Stockholm. And he was the most amazing salesman. He always like the perfect balance between selling and just over giving me good compliments on how good I looked in these jeans and making me believe it basically. But when you go online, you are like totally alone if you go to a website, and I don't like that. I want to be a part of something, and I want to be seen. I think that making the consumer feel seen if they want it makes sense. Also, I think that create spaces for conversation to allow conversations to happen and allow people to connect with each other. Not only to bind those people closer to the brand, but also to each other, and also to learn from the discussion that they're having with each other, which take me to the next point, to use your community as a focus group. And there's an example of this that I stole part of this from. And that's Glossier. They had like a top shelfie, which is a kind of funny name, challenged in Glossier, which is one of the big, I think it's Shopify. Yeah, congratulations. And they asked their followers to submit photos of their medical or medicine cabinets where they have their makeup and stuff like that. And everything was published. It was up to you to send it if you wanted to. And then they realized that a lot of people don't have any good cleansers or something like that. We don't really know the name of it. So they started to develop that with this user group and say like, why are you not using this product and so on. And then they did a milky jelly something. It was a huge success for them as well. I think the first part is like challenge and interact with the customers. Let them be part of something that is fun. To me, a medical cabinet might not be fun, but if you're into, beauty products, then it probably is.
Vi kan nog förvänta oss en tuff period för många e-handelsföretag det närmaste året. Jag tror att vi tyvärr kommer att se fler konkurser, vi kommer se fler samgåenden. Samtidigt finns det en del e-handelsföretag som går riktigt bra just nu. Och det är framförallt de företag som har en så kallad community som man pratar om, där kunder är en del av affären. Där ser vi att det går väldigt bra för en del fortfarande.
Yeah, we didn't mind that one. And I think what they talked about here was Matilda Järf or Järf Avenue and Lyco that was doing good. That is partly community, but it's also that they obviously are really good at what they're doing. But they both said that like we are every customer is an influencer to us and so on. They have this kind of take on it, and I think it's really important. In respect of time, I will save demos for for the mingles. I would be happy to show and tell for every one of you rather than go into this. It's but I will leave you with this actually. We built this coming from the enterprise era, where our typical projects were 6 to 12 months, something like that. The average license that we had was about 6,000 euro per month. Hosting 12,000-15,000 per month, something like that. And now we're down to 59 euros per month, including hosting. And it takes about, 4 minutes to install or something like that. It's drag and drop. There's a second step to it. You can also create your own store front end. It's MIT open source, so you can download it and create it towards API if you want to get some, speed improvements. But I think that's taken a few years, but we really want this to be available, that we've done for like enterprise companies. We really want this to be available to anyone. So we are really trying to find like reasonable monthly fees versus what it costs versus, you know, everything like that, because we want it to be available for everyone. It works for even if you're Glossier or if you're starting up your Shopify store, because we think that these like Shopify stores as tomorrow, as we call them, are our most important customer group.